Why did you come here?
I work with my uncle.
You scared of him?
Oh, he's the nicest man in the world.
The Osage murders, also known as the Osage Indian murders or the Reign of Terror, were a series of gruesome crimes that took place in the Osage Nation in the early 1920s. David Grann's book, The Killers of the Flower Moon, meticulously researched this dark chapter in American history, revealing the depths of greed and corruption that some were willing to go to in order to exploit the wealth of the Osage Nation. Recently, the book was adapted into a film directed by Martin Scorsese, starring Leonardo DiCaprio and Robert De Niro, which further brought attention to this historical tragedy. Here are some surprising truth and lesser-known details about these murders. Unprecedented wealth. One of the reasons for these murders were the extraordinary wealth that the Osage people had accumulated due to old discoveries on their land. The wealth generated by these oil royalties was staggering.
Whose land is this?
My land.
Many Osage individuals, including men, women, and even children, were receiving substantial sums of money on a regular basis. Some individuals were earning thousands or even millions of dollars per year, making them among the wealthiest people in the world per capita. Nonetheless, this sudden affluence led to both opportunities and dangers for the Osage people.
Essentially, every member of the tribe was a millionaire, so that attracted good people and it attracted bad people.
Sophisticated killings. One of the most common and sophisticated methods used to kill Osage individuals was poisoning. The conspirators often used deadly substances like strychnine and arsenic, which could be administered in small and undetectable doses over time. This made it difficult for investigators to trace the cause of death.
And there was a lot of poisoning things going on too, people poisoning people.
Some of the perpetrators had medical knowledge or were connected to healthcare professionals. This allowed them to administer poisons in a way that mimicked natural illnesses or conditions, making it less likely for the death to be investigated as homicides.
This man that supplied whiskey gave this whiskey to my grandfather. He knew it was poisoned. Legend has it my granddad come home one day, laid down on a couch and never got up again.
The birth of the FBI. The Osage murders played a pivotal role in the early history of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, or known as FBI. The responsibility for investigating the Osage murders fell to the newly established Bureau of Investigation, which would later become the Federal Bureau of Investigation, or FBI. At the time, the FBI was a relatively small and underfunded agency with limited authority.
I was sent down from Washington, D.C. to see about these murders.
See, what about him?
See who's doing it.
Special Agent Tom White was assigned to lead the investigation into the Osage murders. White was a former Texas Ranger with a reputation for tenacity and resourcefulness. The Osage murders also played a significant role in the early career of J. Edgar Hoover, who would later become the director of the FBI.
In fact, this is one of their first investigations, a successful investigation, to help build their reputation as a law enforcement agency.
Marriage for murder. One of the most shocking aspects of the Osage murders was the practice of marriage for murder. Some white settlers and individuals, often with knowledge of the old wealth of the Osage Nation, sought to marry Osage men or women in order to gain control over their valuable oil headrights. These marriages were often carefully planned and calculated.
Ernest was encouraged to marry her by his uncle, Bill Hale, in order to get her family's shares in the oil profits.
The Osage people believed they were entering into loving and genuine marriages. Little did they know that their spouses were often motivated solely by greed and the desire to exploit their wealth. After marriage, the plotters would take various steps to carry out the murders. This might involve poisoning their spouses, hiring hitmen, or using other sinister methods to eliminate them.
There's a woman that come from Kansas City who married my grandfather, and that was her main goal, was to have him murdered.
Victim toll. The exact number of victims in the Osage murders is difficult to ascertain with precision due to the secretive and complex nature of the crimes. However, it is estimated that at least 24 Osage individuals were killed as a result of the conspiracy and related crimes.
It was just a genocide. and they tried to wipe us out over the greed of the money.
The investigations led to the identification and confirmation of numerous victims who were murdered during the conspiracy. These victims were often poisoned, shot, or subjected to other forms of violence.
So these are the three that were killed. Her house was blown up, the mom was poisoned, and Anna was shot.
Fear and intimidation within the Osage community may have prevented some families from reporting the deaths of their loved ones or from seeking justice. The exact number may have been higher, as some murders went unsolved or unreported.
The real death toll was not the official death toll the Bureau gave of about 27, that it was in the scores, if not hundreds.
Violence and threats. The Osage murders were characterized by a pervasive atmosphere of violence, intimidation, and threats. Both Osage individuals and investigators who were getting close to the truth faced threats and violence.
Please send help. There's murder in Osage, and the police do nothing.
Beyond the physical violence, the Osage community was subjected to a constant atmosphere of fear and intimidation. Many Osage individuals and families lived in fear and were hesitant to speak out against the perpetrators.
If you were an Osage and you had money and you were full blood, you might as well have been walking around with a target on you.
Some individuals who were close to uncovering the truth and willing to testify against the conspirators died under suspicious circumstances. These deaths were often orchestrated to eliminate potential witnesses.
They called it the Reign of Terror because you didn't know where it was going to strike next. You don't know whose house was going to be blown up next. You didn't know who was going to be killed next. You didn't know who was going to be shot next.
Unsolved cases. The Osage murders left a legacy of unsolved cases and unanswered questions. Despite the efforts of law enforcement, not all of the murders were solved, and some individuals involved in the conspiracy escaped justice.
Our head rights have been taken from us, our land has been taken from us, and these people, these murderers, they get royalty checks.
The Osage murder conspiracy was intricate and involved a network of individuals, including members of the Osage community and outsiders. This complexity made it challenging for investigators to untangle the web of crimes.
There's just bad luck.
Seems more like an epidemic than bad luck to me.
Law enforcement, including the newly formed FBI, faced limitations in terms of manpower and resources during the investigations. Over time, evidence related to the unsolved cases may have been lost, destroyed, or deliberately hidden, further complicating efforts to solve the crimes.
The FBI really did not solve. Is that accurate?
I would say, yeah, they didn't. As far as they knew, pretty much the FBI was done. Those generations are gone, and very sad.
Corruption and complicity. Corruption and complicity played a significant role in the Osage murders. These elements were instrumental in facilitating the conspiracy to murder Osage tribal members and exploit their oil wealth.
There were people here come to kill Osages for the money. There was so much corruption, you can't even imagine.
At various levels of government and law enforcement, there were individuals who were either directly involved in the conspiracy or who turned a blind eye to the crimes. Some local officials and law enforcement officers were complicit in covering up the murders and protecting the conspirators.
He had control of all the police and the courts and the lawyers.
Some individuals involved in the conspiracy used bribery and kickbacks to secure the cooperation of government officials and law enforcement. This ensured that investigations into the murders would be hindered or derailed.
Now we have all these different attorneys who were involved, all the Congress was involved, the bankers were involved. They knew there was a lot of money to be made, and the easiest way to get to it was through murder.
Impact on families. The impact of the Osage murders on the affected families was profound and enduring. These families not only mourned the loss of their loved ones, but also faced financial devastation due to the loss of access to valuable oil royalties.
To this day, over a fourth of the head rights of the Osage mineral estate do not belong to Osages. It's gone. It belongs to other people, other institutions.
The murders often had a devastating financial impact on families. With the deaths of Osage individuals, Their valuable oil headrights and the income they generated were lost. Families who relied on this income for their livelihoods were suddenly left in financial distress.
Well, I think that it has an effect on people, the way that our people were treated.
Cultural impact. The Osage murders had a profound and lasting impact on the Osage Nation. The trauma and fear endured by the community still resonate today. This trauma has been passed down through generations, shaping the collective memory and historical consciousness of the Osage people.
It's a part of our history now, and hopefully we're making progress of not being victims any longer.
Many Osage artists, writers, and filmmakers have used their creative talents to explore and depict the Osage murders in literature, visual art, and documentaries. These artistic expressions have helped raise awareness and preserve the memory of the victims.
My hope is with a movie, a book reaches so many people, but a movie can reach even more. That this story will become part of our national narrative, will become part of our consciousness.
What do you think of Osage murders? Who do you think were the most responsible for these murders? Let us know in the comments below.
They didn't have to kill it for the money. If they'd have hung around long enough, we'd have given it to them. We do that today.